All right. Hello, everyone. This is Brent Morrison coming to you on behalf of the Titan Leader app. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button. I recommend you turn on the notifications by clicking the bell. We normally release a video geared towards athletes every Wednesday night and another one meant for coaches on Thursday night. Both are typically at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In addition to our YouTube channel, there's a lot more free content on the app. We do something a little special, and we are bringing you the Week of Champions. So every night this evening, or every night this week, we'll be bringing you someone that has state or national titles. So with me today is Coach Kremer. He is the head basketball coach at Archbishop Moeller High School. You can see his resume. Probably the most impressive thing is he has 5 state titles. So thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you, Brent. It's an honor to be here.
All right, so let's roll into this. I was doing some research on your program, and I saw this quote, drink the water, but remember who dug the well. So could you talk to us about like what that quote means and how you actually apply it into the culture of your team?
Yeah, thanks, Brent. It is a sign when our kids come into our locker room. It's the very first sign that they see. Obviously, we want the kids, when we talk about drinking the water, take advantage of the program that they get to play in now. The notoriety the program has, the success that it's had, the respect that it has from community and college coaches, et cetera. Go ahead and fully drink of the water, but always have that attitude of gratitude of who built that and who came before you to help establish this and put you in a situation as a player and us as a program in the best situation we can be to be great. So it's really about gratitude. It's about gratitude, and it's not just toward our former players, although we really do try to keep our former players alive and talk about them all the time in our program. It's really about gratitude for everyone. It's gratitude for their parents and what they have done. It's gratitude for their teachers, gratitude for their teammates. It's about seeing life bigger than just taking what you need, but realizing those people who make things possible in your life.
So could you talk to us about like some practical application? Because I mean, obviously you have a extremely impressive alumni base. Maybe how do you incorporate them in the program to like remind the kids who dug the well?
That's a good, the one thing we do, we're pretty blessed. We have a lot of guys who played and a lot of guys who have become, pretty well known. As they will show up at our games, we always are bringing our alumni into the locker room. And we have the alumni. I mean, these are grown men sing the fight song with our players at the end of a game and a victory. We try to bring in a lot of guys to speak to our team. And we'll bring in anyone, but typically it's an alum. I know, like in this tournament run in particular, David Bell, the manager of the Reds, David played for us back in the early 90s. David came in and talked about his talk was incredible. He connected so closely with our guys, and his humility and his ability to come in and even say he was nervous talking to the team. And this is the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. And it was really amazing. But I think for him to he talked about core values and the core values he's brought to the Reds. Brent Souter, who's a pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, will come in almost every year. And Brent was a guy that great athlete at Moeller, but really didn't play a ton of minutes when he was on our basketball team. And now he's been in the majors now 4 years, having a great career with the Brewers. But he talks a lot about what the experience of playing basketball at Moeller meant to him, and even being on what we call our gold team. So we've had Byron Larkin came in. We've had a business owner, Phil Arrington, who owns Prasco here in town. So we just try to bring in different guys and let them. I want our players to see that this whole thing and what they're doing here is a lot more than just basketball, that it really is, I think, the best classroom in the world. And so many lessons that these successful people have had, they've really, they took from their experience in high school sports. So, you know, we really try to use our alums to bring that point home.
Man, that's awesome. And, you know, obviously a very impressive alumni base to draw from. So another thing that I know you're, you know, with the expectations of your program, you know, people talk about, hey, you're going to win another state title, you're going to win a GCL title, all that type of stuff. And you've put a huge emphasis on being process driven over result driven. So maybe explain that to us. And then, you know, again, kind of talk about like practical application, like what kind of speech patterns do you guys use, or sound bites, or, you know, what power statements, whatever you want to call them.
Well, you know, we really do believe strongly, Brent, that so many people get caught up in these goals, like, you know, we're going to win a state championship, and that's fine. I mean, to have that in the back of your head, but if that's what you're thinking about all the time, we just believe you get way out in front. Or even the individual goals. I want to be an all-league player. It's okay to have them, and it's okay to even write those down and have them. But the reality is you have to live in the process of getting those. And to me, what any kid gets out of his high school experience, and I try to really talk to parents a lot about this when we have our early season meetings, is I think parents sometimes get caught up in thinking that the value of a high school sports experience is eventually getting a scholarship, or having your name printed in the paper that you scored this many points, and those kind of things. And those aren't necessarily bad. I'm not fighting against those. But what I'm saying is the true value is what you do every day. It's the discipline and getting up in the morning and getting your workout in. It is the humility to accept the role on a team to make others better. Those values that sports teach better than anyone. That should be the emphasis. You know, I always say to parents, if you're looking for a program in which your son's going to learn a lot about life and come out a better man and be around good people where things are expected of him in the right way, I will promise you that. If you're coming in expecting so many minutes on the floor, if you're coming in expecting all league status, if you're coming in expecting a college scholarship, I can't promise that. Those things. So just a big emphasis on the process. I will share for you, Brent, even, you know, in this whole COVID-19 tragedy, the one thing that made it easier for us to deal with, and frankly, Brent, we had a team that, you know, I'm not saying we would have won the state championship. We believe we would have. I'm sure others do too, but you know, we'd been number one in the state all year. And, you know, we had some seniors on this team, and I know they were heartbroken, but it was a lot easier for me to say to them in our very first meeting, hey guys, you know, it was never about the destination for us. It was always about the journey. And we had the journey. Now it ended 3 games before we wanted it to end by matters out of our hands, but we had that journey. We had that experience together. We grew as a team. Excuse me. Our goal was always try to be the best we can be in March. That's always what we talk about. Not winning games, be at our best in March. And our guys all believe we're there. We were doing that. So I think by putting the journey, the process first over the destination, you get to control those results better. And so we are constantly talking about that with our guys.
Gotcha. So one of the challenges I think a lot of coaches face is when we have players, you know, like some of your alumni you've talked about, that they get kind of targeted at a very young age as like, man, this is the next guy, right? So sometimes those guys get, all they hear about is you're going to the NBA, you're going to go play NCAA, you know. So how do you take those guys and have conversations with them and maybe get them more geared towards the process-driven mentality over that result-driven mentality?
There's certainly not a magical pill. And I think for us to some degree, Brent, if you look at our school, we have kids come from really all over Northeast Cincinnati, can choose to go to Moeller High School. So kids that are going to go play basketball for us are typically kids that come from families that see that bigger picture. I don't know that we have to coach them into it that much. We had a kid this year you might be aware of, but we had a kid named Miles McBride go to West Virginia, and he was one of their best players as a freshman. Miles had an unbelievable career for us. He was also a great football player. Got hurt his junior year and missed his junior year in basketball. But Miles was a kid that averaged 14 points a game for us because we had some other good players, and we're going to share the basketball. It's not going to be built around one guy. In my mind, he was clearly the best player in the state of Ohio. I mean, he made all the big plays. He spent his time making other guys better. And he goes to West Virginia this year and scores more for West Virginia than he did for Moeller his senior year. But he also won, 2 state titles at Moeller. He only lost 1 game in his whole career. That was in the state finals his sophomore year. He was on a winning team. Well, the point I'm making here is he really came from a family that valued what we teach and what we're about. So I can't take a lot of credit. I think those things typically start at home. But if you get a kid who comes in, hopefully your culture, and you've built the culture so big, all your coaches, the great majority of your players believe in that culture over the course of time. And we've seen that in our program. Guys start to be won over by the idea. We call it team attitude. It's our second core value. Guys start to buy into that, and it works. And you know what? With some guys it doesn't, and they might end up leaving. And we've had guys who've transferred, and not that I ever want anyone to leave, but there does have to be a fit in what our values are. And if they can't buy into that value, then they're probably better off in another situation.
All right, Coach. So 3 times now you've referenced your team core values, and we've only heard one of them. So could you tell us what they are?
Yeah, and again, Brent, we kind of start, we got the core values way before it was fashionable. And I think everyone does that now, or largely. But when we started the program, when we got in 1990, we came up with these things that are going to be important to us, that everyone in our program is going to know, and we're going to talk about them every day. It's not just going to be words on a wall. It's really going to be what we strive to live by. So our first one is arete. It's a Greek word, A-R-E-T-E, that means in its English translation is perfect. And obviously we're not talking about being perfect, but what we do talk about is that everything that we do in the course of our day, we are going to strive to be perfect at it. So we're not going to do anything halfway. We're not going to have a halfway practice. We're not going to have a halfway drill. We're not going to do a summer camp and roll the balls out and collect the money. We're going to make it the best we possibly can. Everything that we commit to, we are going to have the best effort we possibly can to do that. And I think a lot of things are insinuated in arete. I think continuous improvement is part of that. So I could spend an hour just talking about arete, but it's that idea to be the best we can do at everything. And if we can't do it the best, then we're not going to do it. We'll go on to something else. But it's about trying to be the best. Our second core value is team attitude. I just kind of talked about that, but that is that unique ability to make the team bigger than yourself and to have the mindset that is truly about we and not me. And for myself personally, that's the one I'm most passionate in. I just think success comes from getting a big group of people all rowing the boat in the same direction for the same purpose. That's when truly great things happen. Our third is first class. And first class is, again, very important. It talks about, really gets to the heart of our character. Who are we as people? How do we treat other people? How do we treat each other? How do we treat our facilities? how do we respond to referees? How do we respond to teachers in the classroom? And again, I would say to you, we've 30 years of coaching, and the one thing I would tell you, teachers in our school will come up and say, you know, Moeller basketball players are going to handle themselves the right way. And if they're not, and we have kids come in a lot as freshmen, and they're a little bit about themselves and a little bit maybe don't treat other people the right way, that kid won't last in our program 4 years. And I don't care how good he is. They're either going to make a change or not be in our program. And we're again, we emphasize that a lot. And our fourth core value is toughness. And certainly physical toughness is a part of that. Great athletic teams play with a degree of physical toughness. In our sport, it's manifested by taking charges, getting loose balls, you know, playing through an annoying injury, being able to just have a toughness about how you approach your life. But of course, the biggest part of this, Brent, I know, is you being a coach, it's the mental toughness. And it's how you deal with adversity. It's how you deal with fatigue. It's how you deal with all those things in your life that can hold you back from being your best. And so those are our four things. We don't complicate it. We don't change it. Even kids that come to my camp, we'll have a couple hundred kids each week come to our basketball camp, and you know, all the way down to second graders. And the first thing we do with all of them is teach them those four core values. They got to repeat them. You know, at lunchtime, we are constantly talking about those core values, because to me, that's what youth sports is all about, to teach the values that we think lead to a better life.
Absolutely, man, those core values, that's awesome. We do something similar in our program as well. And like you said, I think most people are. So, you know, it's become popular and everyone wants to kind of know how everyone incorporates it. So appreciate that. The other thing that struck me when I was doing some research on your program is multiple times, and this kind of relates to your core values as well. I saw this quote from you: a great community is a community of equals. And, you know, like you said, with that alumni base, even with your prestige as a coach, you know, what does that look like? And what are some things you do in your program to make sure that that last guy on the bench, or the first guy off the bench, or the starters, right? How do you create that system of equality?
So Brent, yeah, this is important to me. Let me give you a little background. That phrase, a community of equals, actually, we are a Marinist high school. We're sponsored by the Society of Mary. It is it's a religious society like the Jesuits. You might be familiar with the Jesuits. The Marinists are smaller, but the Society of Marinists was founded by Father Chaminade. You've heard that name, Chaminade. Yep. There are Chaminade high schools all over. Father Chaminade was a priest in France during the French Revolution who created the Society of Mary. And obviously there were nuns, there were priests, there were brothers, and many of those brothers became teachers, and it spread across the world. Well, the reason I tell you all that is that was one of Father Chaminade's big thing, a community of equals. The Marinists often didn't wear the priestly gear, the collar and all that. They dressed just like the people they served. And the brothers were not ranked any higher than the priests, even though they weren't able to say mass and give communion. They were all seen as equal. And when I first got into it, and I started reading about Father Chaminade, and I, you know, just in how I was raised in my family, that really spoke to me that true success comes from, I just don't believe in hierarchy. I think a lot of times we have these hierarchical setups, and you see them in sports teams, like the head coach sits at the top and everything goes toward him to make him happy and all that. And that's never been my approach. To see the community of equals play out in our program, here's what I would share with you. Like I've always said, it's about high school sports. We've been blessed to win a lot of championships, and you know what, Brent? Because we get good players. That's about. I mean, start there. it's nothing magical. We get good players. So what truly would separate our program if we believe that we're special? Because I don't think winning does that. I just think we're blessed to have good players and some wins come with that. To me, don't go ask the two best players on your team what their experience was like. Go get a couple guys that were on the bench and who didn't play and talk to those guys about their experience of being in your program. And if those guys and one of the manager talked about what a meaningful experience it was for them, not necessarily easy, but what a meaningful experience and what it meant to them. And if those kids are saying consistently that was special, then I think you have a special high school coach and a special high school program. And that comes from my whole idea of community of equals. We don't play all 15 guys on our roster every game, obviously. We're going to play those top 7 or 8. We are trying to win basketball games, but everybody in our team has to feel like they play an equal part in the process that brings about that victory on Friday. And as a head coach, if you just let society handle that, they're going to write about just the star guys. They're going to give the attention to the star guys. In that locker room as coaches, we better make sure we're recognizing the managers, that we're recognizing the other coaches, we're recognizing those guys who are on scout team all week. That is a major emphasis that we make that I think helps provide this community of equals. And you know what, Brent, we're not always perfect with it. I've had some teams where at the end of the year, we had great records. But as I'm talking to the players at the end, maybe we didn't do as good a job in making those guys on what we call the gold team feel a tremendous part of the team. And I just think that's really, really important. And I would even say this, Brent, if you watched our team play, if you came to a practice, you might not know who the head coach was. If you didn't see my ugly face right now, all my coaches are very involved. There are guys who teach our offense better than I do. So I'm not going to let my ego get into the way and say, I've got to do it because I'm the head coach. I'm going to, and I think that's why, we've got 12 coaches on our staff. Most of them have been with us for over 15 years. We trust one another, and there's no ego into the roles and into who gets the credit. The other sign that we have in our locker room, I think is really important. And I got this from my college mentor, but he said, great things can be accomplished as long as no one cares who gets the credit. And to me, that's the community of equals. And it's not about being about any one person. It's about a collective effort and collective accomplishment. And I think we get that.
So you mentioned that you like to acknowledge, some of those people that don't show up in the newspaper. So, like for instance, on our football team, in addition to our players of the week on offense, defense, special teams, we also do a scout team player of the week. So do you have anything like that where, you deliberately make sure that you recognize those guys?
Every week, we stat every practice. That's not all unusual. We do that. And at the end of every week, we give an award to the practice player of the week. But in order to make that award fair, we don't just give it to our rotation guys. We give it to our scout team. So every week, a scout team guy also, just kind of like your system, gets the reward. It's a little gift card and name goes up on the board, but they get that recognition as one of the practice players of the week. And other than that, I can't think of a lot of tangible. It's just, after wins, we make sure we recognize those guys who, again, maybe the crowd's not, the media's not asking to talk to them, but within our locker room, we really make that a big deal.
Gotcha. All right. So you've mentioned all these non-basketball factors that you think are important. So, in basketball, unlike football, you guys have your tryouts and, you have to make cuts and it's tough sometimes. So how do you evaluate all those non-basketball skills? Like, are there certain ones that you look at? And then is it a point system? Is it just a feel because you've been doing it so long? You know, because I mentioned like leadership, coachability, grit, you know, whatever those things might be.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is a little bit nuanced because, it's different on each level. So our school is a bit unique, Brent, where you know your guys. Well, I guess you don't. You don't know your guys until they come to high school. You were explaining that to me. But, we don't really know who we're going to have until that freshman year. So we might have 50 to 60 kids try out for the freshman basketball team. A handful of those kids I know pretty well, but there's a pretty large group I don't know them all that well. When we do our freshman tryouts, we'll keep 20 freshmen. I tell them there are really three things that we base that on. Certainly, it's on their talent, their basketball talent, their physical talent. That's the number one thing that we evaluate on those freshman tryouts. The second thing that we evaluate on those tryouts, and maybe the most important freshman year, is our projection of them over 4 years. How we project they're going to play out over 4 years. So what would influence that? A kid who dominates in 8th grade because he's got a beard and he's stronger than everybody else may not be a great basketball player for us as a junior. We've done this long enough to know. A kid with a different physical build and a kid who's demonstrated that he really loves the game, that kid may project for us a little better. So, and it's kind of hard for parents to hear that at times. And I say it to the parents when I bring them in. We're looking for 4-year projectability in our program. And we're not just picking the 20 best players today. We're picking who we believe. We're making a 4-year decision here in making these selections. And then the last thing is attitude. And that's really all the things you just talked about. But as a freshman, we don't know them that well yet. Even if a kid's maybe a little bit into himself and we can see that, but we think he's got some talent, we'll give him a chance this freshman year. But when that flips around by, say, junior year, and now they're trying to make our varsity, for me, it almost flips. Those attitude things, particularly for kids that may not be our top 7 or 8 guys, and those attitude things are paramount. Their ability to be a part of a team, to accept the role, to bring positive energy into our practice every day. That becomes more important to me at that level, the varsity, than maybe their 4-year projectability, because that's already been played out to a certain degree. So, it's kind of interesting. It varies at different parts of the process of playing here.
So one of the other things is you've hit this high level of success, and we see a lot of schools that kind of cycle, right? We go up and down, or, they can't maintain that really high level. So do you have any, thoughts on what you guys do that has been the key to maintaining, that consistent, like, championship level basketball?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question, Brad. Here's what I think. First, let's not dodge this. I think being a Catholic school where we do have an open enrollment, so kids that at your school, you've got that locked in boundary that you're going to have. And I think, you may get those years where you're pretty talented and then other years where you're not. Moeller basketball from 1960, when the school opened, to 1990 really only had a few winning seasons. Had some great players, but only a few winning seasons. Once it got going in the 90s, and once I think people saw that we're going to have success in our program, people wanted to come to our school. Brent, we get accused for recruiting and cheating, and I can tell you, I couldn't live with any of these core values if we cheated. But there is an advantage because kids can come to our school to be a part of that culture. I think parents who see that. So let's not kid ourselves. One reason we've been able to stay consistently good is we've been able to attract talent, and it takes talent to be to win games and championships. To have a great program, I don't believe that, but to win championships. So start with that. But the reason I think we've been able to attract the right talent and get it to work together, both coaching staff and players, is I think the culture is right. That's why I've always believed schemes change. Like, we have changed how we've played in my 30 years, Brent, probably 15 different times. We've made major changes in how we change, and change a little bit every year based on our personnel, just like I'm sure you do. That can change, and scheme's important, but it doesn't compare to culture. In terms of having consistency, for people knowing this is how things get done in the Moeller basketball locker room, this is how they're going to react to this. This is where you better be in school if you want to play Moeller basketball. And if not, don't go play at Moeller because it's not a good fit for you. I think that's the thing. I think having great talent, being able to attract great coaches who have stayed and coached for us for years and years. I truly believe, Brent, we have the best total coaching staff in the state of Ohio. And I'm just a small part of that. I get to kind of be the overseer, but we really have some unbelievable coaches who love coaching in our culture. So again, I keep coming back to, and I know you agree, it's really the culture you create that gives you long-term consistency.
All right, let's shift gears here a little bit. Step off the basketball court. You're also the principal at Moeller. You're your own boss, which is nice. So, most of the people on here also, are teachers, they're deans, assistant principals. So how do you take those things that we've talked about and apply them to either a classroom or, in your situation, the entire school?
It is similar. I mean, I've actually been involved in a project this year where we are developing core values right now. We have a mission statement, and we have what characteristics of a Marinist education that come from the Marinists that give us a lot of direction. But we're even going to drill down further, and we're going to do it this spring. We're going to wait till next fall now to introduce core values within our school. Really how we want our business done every day as educators. For me, I had no plan to be principal. And to be honest with you, Brent, I'm really not all that qualified to be a great principal. It's a job that kind of fell to me. I have been dean of students, really did the discipline in the school for about 25 years. And one of my very best friends, Blaine Collison, left the school to go to another place. And we did a search for a principal. I had no interest in doing it. They asked me if I would for a year. So I did it interim while we searched. And in our principal search, we really didn't find the right guy. And at that point, our board and our president asked me if I would take it on. And again, but I'm not kidding. I really am not prepared to be that guy. I don't have all the background knowledge and curriculum and education. Now, I was certified to do it. I'm certified. I took all those classes 30 years ago, but I really had not. I'd focused on basketball and discipline. So I knew right away I need to go out and find some people that could cover my weaknesses. And again, I think that's a big part of coaching. And we actually, Dr. Christine Brookbank, a young female who came in an all-boy Catholic school, that was a bit unheard of to hire an administrator who was a female in an all-boy Catholic school. But she's come in. She is she's so bright, and she understands how to move our school to put us on the cutting edge in an educational perspective. So she's come in, and I'm out of her way. I'm letting her lead that part of the school because she's great with people too. She really has the whole package. And I hired a guy within our school that I've been watching for years to be our student life leader. And I'm out of his way a lot. So a lot of people say, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? Well, I'm a big delegator, and the same in basketball. Get good people and let them do their jobs and let them work to their ability. And That to me is why it's worked. I'm not going to do it a whole lot longer. My goal was to always bridge it, get the right people in, and then I'm 60 now. I'm getting close to retirement. Now you public school guys get to go out quicker than we do, but I've got a few more years, and I'll help in the school to some degree. But that's how we handled it, and just being that bridge for the next group.
So, Coach, you mentioned that you're establishing core values for your school right now. So you had mentioned your basketball core values have been in place for 30-ish years, right? So I think is this idea of coaching culture just as much as you coach your sport is getting very popular. And a lot of people are searching, like, how do I develop the right core values for my program? So could you take us through the process that your school is using to develop the right core values?
Yeah, that's really a great point, Brady. So, when I go back 30 years ago and I just got the Moeller job, and again, probably wasn't that qualified for the job, but back then no one really wanted the Moeller job. My own gut feeling was, man, you better know what's important to you right now. And everyone around you better know what's important, and then stay focused on that. So it was more instinct. I don't remember ever reading about it or anyone else doing that. Certainly now it's everywhere. And what we did actually is, our president is very into trying to be cutting edge and trying to be great. So we actually hired a consultant who was a Moeller grad. I remember him as a student, but he runs a company where he works with educational institutions. He's down in Louisiana and New Orleans. And Justin came up and worked with the president and me, and we really started by getting the whole faculty engaged, our administrative team. We started, in just basic stuff. We started talking about what we thought was important, what our school did the best, and what we wished our school could do better. And we started looking at all those values and all those things, had a couple large teacher meetings, and then we got down to a smaller group, and we've been working on it all year. And now we're down to 3 concepts with three bullet points for each concept. And it really has a lot more than just my 4 words. It has a lot of almost poetry to it in a way, but we want things that will stick in kids' heads. So when kids come to Moeller and we say these things, oh, I know what they mean by that. I know what that means. I know what's expected of me here. So it's been a long process, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate all the wisdom you've shared with us. For those of you guys out there watching, the Week of Champions will continue tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got Coach Meyer coming on board. If you're interested in that content, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, make sure you download the Titan Leader app. And if you go to #TitanLeaderTalks on Twitter, you will also be able to interact with Coach Meyer and drop questions as he's going.